The knock came just as the janitor was rinsing his mop under the dim utility sink, water splashing against cracked tiles like a warning he didn't yet understand, a sound that would soon echo in his chest louder than any memory from his past. He had no idea that the single knock, heavy and deliberate, would unravel years of quiet struggle, buried sacrifice, and unspoken courage, or that it would finally give meaning to a kindness he thought no one had noticed. If stories like this remind you that kindness still matters in a tired world, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in second chances and unseen heroes. The man's name was Daniel Mercer, though almost no one at the municipal building ever bothered to remember it. To them, he was just a janitor who came in before sunrise and left long after the last office lights flickered off, pushing his squeaking cart through hallways that smelled of bleach and old paperwork. Daniel was a single father, raising his 8-year-old son alone in a small apartment where the heater rattled louder than the refrigerator and every dollar had a purpose already assigned before it was earned. His wife had died years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving behind grief that never fully loosened its grip and a child who learned early how to be quiet when his father's eyes grew distant. Every morning began the same way, Daniel tying his worn boots while his son slept, then stepping into the cold dawn with a lunch packed in a brown paper bag and a weight in his chest that never quite lifted. He worked 2 shifts when he could, sometimes 3, because school supplies cost money and growing boys needed shoes more often than life seemed fair. Pride kept him silent, even when exhaustion bent his shoulders and scrapped his patience thin. He had once worn a uniform himself, years ago, but those days felt like they belonged to another man entirely, one who had believed life followed rules if you followed them hard enough. It was on one of those long evenings, when the building was nearly empty and the city hummed faintly outside, that Daniel noticed the woman sitting alone near the entrance. She wore a navy uniform, though it was rumpled, as if it had been slept in or worn too long without rest. Beside her sat a little girl, no more than 6, clutching a stuffed animal with frayed ears and staring at the floor as if afraid it might disappear. The woman's posture was rigid, but her eyes carried a fatigue Daniel recognized instantly, the kind that came from fighting too many battles without backup. Daniel didn't ask questions. He never did. He simply slowed his cart, offered a nod, and went about his work. But when he passed again and saw the child shivering, he paused, then quietly returned with an old blanket he kept in his locker for cold nights. He laid it gently across the girl's shoulders, careful not to startle her, and moved on without waiting for thanks. Later, he brought a cup of hot cocoa from the break room machine, pretending he'd made too much. Small things, almost invisible, but they softened the sharp edges of that lonely corner of the building. Over the next few days, Daniel saw them again and again. The Navy woman, whose name he eventually learned was Lieutenant Sarah Collins, was waiting on paperwork that kept getting delayed, trapped in a maze of bureaucracy while trying to secure housing and support after an unexpected transfer. Her daughter, Lily, followed her everywhere, silent but watchful, eyes too old for her age. Daniel learned their routine without ever prying, learned when Lily liked to draw on scrap paper and when Sarah's hands trembled from holding herself together too long. Daniel's help never crossed into heroics. He fixed a broken chair so Lily could sit comfortably, slipped extra snacks into the child's backpack, and once stayed late so Sarah wouldn't have to wait alone in the dark. He never mentioned his own struggles, never spoke of the nights he skipped meals or the way his son asked why other kids had more. Helping them felt natural, like breathing, and in doing so, Daniel forgot for a while how heavy his own life felt. But kindness has a way of testing those who give it freely. One evening, Daniel overheard raised voices near the front desk, words sharp with frustration and authority. Sarah stood stiffly as a supervisor spoke down to her, questioning her presence, her paperwork, her right to be there at all. Lily clung to her mother's leg, eyes wide with fear. Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Without thinking, he stepped forward, calmly explaining the situation as he understood it, offering to confirm details, to vouch for them in the only way he could. The supervisor dismissed him with a glance, reminding him of his place. But Daniel didn't retreat. He stood quietly, solid as stone, until the tension eased enough for Sarah and Lily to leave without tears. That night, as Daniel locked up and walked home under flickering streetlights, doubt gnawed at him. He wondered if he'd crossed a line, if kindness had once again cost him more than he could afford. At home, his son slept curled beneath thin blankets, and Daniel sat in the dark, questioning whether doing the right thing ever truly paid off. Days passed, heavy with uncertainty. Sarah and Lily stopped appearing at the building, and Daniel feared the worst. He imagined them forced into some cold shelter, lost in a system that didn't care. He told himself there was nothing more he could do, but the thought didn't bring peace. Then came the knock. It was loud, deliberate, and unmistakably official. Daniel froze, heart racing, as he wiped his hands on his uniform and walked toward the sound. When he opened the door, the hallway seemed to fill with presence. 2 uniformed officers stood there, posture formal, eyes steady. Behind them, just visible, was Sarah, her face unreadable, Lily holding her hand. For a moment, Daniel's world narrowed to the space between heartbeats. Fear surged first, sharp and instinctive, followed by a flood of memories he had tried to bury. He wondered if helping had finally brought consequences, if his past had somehow caught up with him. He braced himself, shoulders squared out of habit, ready to accept whatever judgment waited. What followed shattered every expectation he had built to protect himself. The officers weren't there to reprimand him or push him aside. They were there to recognize him. Sarah stepped forward, her composure breaking just enough to reveal gratitude that ran deeper than words. She had told her superiors about the janitor who treated her and her daughter with dignity when the system failed them, about the man who stepped in without obligation or reward. An investigation followed, not into Daniel, but into the delays and mistreatment that had left Sarah stranded. The knock, it turned out, was not an ending but a beginning. Daniel was informed that his own record, long buried under years of anonymity, had resurfaced. His past service, honorable and uncelebrated, was being reconsidered for a civilian support role that came with better pay, stability, and hours that wouldn't steal him away from his son. The officers spoke of opportunity, of recognition, of a chance to step into a future Daniel had stopped imagining. As they left, the hallway felt different, lighter, as if the walls themselves had shifted. Daniel stood alone for a long moment, hands trembling, tears blurring his vision. He thought of every night he doubted himself, every sacrifice made in silence, every act of kindness given without expectation. He realized then that nothing done with a good heart is ever truly lost. In the weeks that followed, life began to change in small but meaningful ways. Daniel took on his new role, learning systems and responsibilities that challenged him but also restored a sense of purpose he thought was gone forever. His son noticed the difference first. The way his father smiled more, came home earlier, listened with renewed patience. Their apartment felt warmer, not because of better heating, but because hope had returned to its walls. Sarah and Lily didn't disappear from Daniel's life. They crossed paths often, now on steadier ground, their gratitude expressed in gestures rather than words. Lily laughed more, her drawings brighter, her eyes no longer shadowed by fear. Daniel saw in her the reflection of his own child, a reminder of why he had kept going when everything told him to stop. The city didn't change overnight. People still hurried past one another, still overlooked those they deemed unimportant. But Daniel carried something new within him, a quiet certainty that even the smallest kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways unseen. He understood now that his value had never been defined by his job title or paycheck, but by the way he showed up when it mattered. Near the end of this story, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps stories like Daniel's reach others who need to believe that goodness still exists. Before we close, please comment below and tell us what this story meant to you, or share a moment when kindness changed your life. The knock that changed everything faded into memory, but its impact remained, echoing through every step Daniel took forward. He continued to clean floors when needed, to help when he could, to love fiercely and quietly, and in doing so, he proved that sometimes the most powerful heroes are the ones who never ask to be seen, only to make a difference. one small act at a time.